Imagine holding an object so cursed that everyone who touches it meets a violent end, or gazing upon a mirror that shows not your reflection, but your death. Throughout history, certain ancient artifacts have carried with them a darkness so profound that they've left trails of madness, death, and unexplained phenomena in their wake. Tonight, we're venturing into the shadows to uncover 6 of the most sinister relics ever discovered, objects that seem to defy explanation and continue to terrify even the most skeptical researchers. But be warned, some knowledge comes with a price, and these artifacts have claimed more victims than you might imagine. What if evil could be contained within 4 walls of wood and brass, waiting patiently for the next unsuspecting soul to lift its lid? The warning came with trembling hands and haunted eyes. An elderly Holocaust survivor, preparing to part with her possessions, clutched the simple wine cabinet close to her chest. To any passerby, it appeared unremarkable aged wood, tarnished hinges, the kind of modest keepsake found in countless estate sales. But her words carried the weight of unspeakable knowledge. Inside this box lived a Dybbuk, a malevolent spirit from Jewish folklore that clings to our world through objects, refusing to pass on to whatever lies beyond. The box should have remained sealed. Instead, it found its way to Kevin Manus, an antique dealer who dismissed the old woman's warnings as superstition. Within hours of bringing it home, his life began to unravel in ways that defied explanation. His hair fell out in clumps, his throat burned with an inexplicable irritation that left him coughing up blood, and shadows seemed to move independently in his peripheral vision. But Manus was not alone in his torment. He was simply the first in a growing line of victims. Each subsequent owner discovered the same terrifying pattern. The nightmares always came first, visions of an ancient hag with yellowed eyes and gnarled fingers reaching through the darkness toward their sleeping forms. Then came the illnesses, sudden and severe, as if something invisible was slowly draining the life from their bodies. The smell followed next. Rotting flowers, sweet and putrid, filling rooms where no flowers had ever been placed. And strangest of all, the objects within the box seemed to possess a will of their own, reappearing even after being removed, discarded, or destroyed. Today, the Dybbuk Box rests behind glass in Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, its lid sealed with religious artifacts and protective symbols. The museum staff have learned to give it a wide berth. Several refuse to enter the room alone, and others have reported tools malfunctioning and electronics failing in its presence. Visitors often find themselves overwhelmed by an inexplicable sense of dread, their visits cut short by an urgent need to escape its influence. The box sits silent now, patient and waiting. But those who have encountered it know the truth. Some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed again. The question that haunts every observer remains, is the Dybbuk still contained within those wooden walls, or has it found new hosts to torment among those curious enough to seek it out? What if a child's tears, captured forever in paint, could survive flames that consume everything else around them? In the 1950s, Italian artist Bruno Amadeo began creating what would become one of the most mass-produced series of paintings in history. His subject was simple yet haunting: crying children. Dozens of different portraits, each depicting a young face streaked with tears, eyes glistening with sorrow. These paintings found their way into countless homes across Europe, innocent decorations that families hung on their walls without a second thought. But by the 1980s, firefighters across Britain began reporting something impossible. Time and again, they would arrive at the smoldering remains of house fires to find these crying boy paintings intact, hanging undamaged on walls where everything else had been reduced to ash. The frames might be scorched, but the children's faces remained untouched, their painted tears still wet-looking in the smoke-filled air. As reports mounted, a disturbing pattern emerged. Over 50 house fires were linked to homes containing these paintings, and the stories from surviving families grew increasingly unsettling. They spoke of eyes that seemed to track movement across the room, of an oppressive sadness that filled their homes, of children who refused to enter rooms where the paintings hung. The artwork that had once seemed merely melancholic now felt malevolent. The legend that began to circulate was as tragic as it was terrifying. They said Bruno Amadeo had painted real children, orphans from the streets, forgotten souls with nowhere to turn. According to whispered accounts, many of these young models had later perished in fires, their spirits somehow bound to the canvases where their final tears had been captured. Whether born of grief or coincidence, the story took hold with a grip as firm as the painting's apparent immunity to flame. Newspapers organized mass burnings, encouraging readers to destroy their crying boy paintings in public bonfires. Thousands were incinerated, yet the fires continued. Even today, decades later, reports trickle in from those who still possess the surviving paintings, unexplained blazes, cold spots in warm rooms, and always those dark eyes watching from frames that refuse to burn. Perhaps some sorrows are too deep to be destroyed by fire, leaving us to wonder, are these merely paintings or windows into something far more permanent and painful? Some objects carry with them a darkness so profound that even centuries cannot cleanse their malevolent touch. In the shadowed halls of history, few artifacts have earned a reputation as sinister as the Basano vase. The story begins in 15th century Italy, where skilled artisans crafted what should have been a symbol of love and union. The silver vase was commissioned as a wedding gift, its polished surface meant to reflect joy and celebration. Instead, it became a harbinger of tragedy when the bride for whom it was intended died mysteriously on her wedding night, before she could even lay hands upon her cursed gift. For centuries, the vase passed from owner to owner like a plague, leaving a trail of unexplained deaths in its wake. Each person who possessed it seemed to fall victim to circumstances both bizarre and fatal. Then, as mysteriously as death had followed it, the vase itself vanished, disappearing into the mists of time for hundreds of years. In 1988, the Basano vase emerged from obscurity at an auction house. Accompanying it was a handwritten note, yellowed with age, bearing a chilling warning: "Beware, this vase brings death." The auctioneers, perhaps viewing the note as nothing more than theatrical folklore, proceeded with the sale anyway. Someone, it seemed, was willing to test fate. What followed defied coincidence. The first buyer, a pharmacist, succumbed to an unknown illness within months of his purchase. The vase passed to a surgeon, who died in a violent car crash shortly after acquiring it. The third owner, an archaeologist who should have known better than most the power of cursed relics, plummeted from his apartment balcony to his death. 3 owners, 3 deaths, 3 months. Faced with mounting evidence of the vase's lethal legacy, Italian police finally intervened. They confiscated the silver vessel and, according to whispered reports, buried it in a secret location known only to a select few. The authorities, it seems, decided that some mysteries are too dangerous to remain in the light. But in a world where greed often outweighs caution and curiosity conquers fear, one must wonder, how long can even the most carefully guarded secret remain buried? Some objects seem to carry the weight of their sins across centuries, dragging misfortune through the lives of all who dare possess them. In the chaos of 1857, as the Indian Rebellion raged across the subcontinent, British forces swept through temples and palaces, claiming treasures that had been sacred for generations. Among these stolen artifacts was a magnificent amethyst, torn from its rightful place in the Temple of Indra in Kanpur. Though it would later be misnamed the Delhi Purple Sapphire, this violet stone was about to begin a dark journey across continents. Colonel W. Ferris, the British officer who brought the amethyst to London, likely believed he had secured a valuable prize. Instead, he had invited catastrophe into his home. Almost immediately, the colonel's family began to crumble under an inexplicable wave of misfortune. Their finances collapsed without warning, their health deteriorated, and a shadow seemed to settle over everything they touched. The beautiful purple stone sat at the center of it all, gleaming innocently while their world fell apart. Desperate to rid himself of the cursed gem, Ferris eventually sold it to Edward Heron Allen, a respected writer and scientist. But the amethyst's malevolent influence followed its new owner like a faithful hound. Heron Allen's life spiraled into such profound misfortune that he took drastic action, hurling the stone into London's Regent's Canal. He must have felt relief as it disappeared beneath the dark waters. That relief was short-lived. Within days, the amethyst was returned to him, pulled from the canal, and delivered back to his doorstep as if by some cosmic joke. Recognizing that he could not simply discard what refused to be discarded, Heron Allen took extraordinary precautions. He surrounded the stone with protective charms and sacred amulets, then locked it away in multiple boxes, each one a barrier against its influence. In a letter that would accompany the cursed gem for decades to come, he wrote that it was trebly accursed and stained with blood and dishonor. His words served as both warning and confession, an acknowledgement that some things should never have been taken. Today, the Delhi Purple Sapphire rests in London's Natural History Museum, still sealed within its protective case, still accompanied by Heron Allen's ominous warning. Visitors peer through the glass at the beautiful amethyst, most unaware of the trail of ruined lives it has left in its wake. But one has to wonder, can glass and metal truly contain a curse that has already proven itself so persistent, so patient, so utterly unwilling to rest? What drives an artist to paint with their own blood, and what darkness might linger within such a creation long after the final brushstroke? Deep in the shadows of an English attic, a painting waited in silence for 25 years. The elderly woman who kept it there had inherited it decades earlier, but something about the oil canvas filled her with such unease that she could never bring herself to hang it on any wall. She spoke little of its origins, only whispering to her grandson Sean Robinson that the unknown artist had done something unspeakable, mixing his own blood into the paint before taking his own life. When Sean finally inherited the painting after his grandmother's passing, he made a decision she never could. He brought it down from the attic and gave it a place in his home. The artwork itself was haunting a tormented figure that seemed to writhe in eternal anguish, but Sean had no idea that displaying it would invite something far more disturbing than mere unease into his life. Within days, the Robinson household became a symphony of inexplicable sounds. Screaming echoed through empty corridors. The sound of weeping drifted from rooms where no one stood. Mysterious smoke would appear and dissipate without source or explanation, while dark figures seemed to move just beyond the edge of vision, lurking in the periphery of their daily lives. The psychological weight of the painting proved unbearable for Sean's family. His wife and son found themselves physically unable to remain in its presence, overcome by waves of nausea and an overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to emanate from the canvas itself. Even when they couldn't see the painting, they could feel its presence, a suffocating darkness that had taken root in their home. When paranormal investigators arrived to document the phenomena, their instruments confirmed what the family had experienced. Temperature readings plummeted without warning. Electromagnetic fields fluctuated wildly around the painting. Most chilling of all, their recording equipment captured what appeared to be the sound of a man sobbing desperate, anguished cries that seemed to emerge from the very paint and canvas. The Anguished Man remains in Sean Robinson's possession, a window into suffering that transcends death itself. But one question lingers in the shadows of this blood-soaked mystery. When an artist commits their final, desperate act into their work, do they ever truly leave it behind? Some artifacts are meant to remain buried, their dark purpose forgotten beneath centuries of earth and silence. In the sun-baked hills of Cyprus, archaeologists uncovered what they believed to be a remarkable find, a 3,500-year-old limestone statue carved with meticulous care to depict the goddess with arms crossed in eternal repose. Her expression, weathered yet unnervingly preserved, seemed to follow those who gazed upon her with an intensity that transcended mere craftsmanship. What they had unearthed, however, was not simply a relic of ancient worship, but something far more sinister. The statue's curse revealed itself with methodical precision. Within 6 years of its discovery, all 4 families who claimed ownership experienced a pattern too deliberate to dismiss as coincidence. Multiple unexplained deaths, each occurring without warning or apparent cause. The limestone goddess seemed to demand a toll from those who dared possess her. Lord Elefant, drawn perhaps by the statue's mysterious allure, acquired the piece for his private collection. Within 4 years, his entire family had perished under circumstances that defied medical explanation. The surviving relatives, desperate to rid themselves of what they now understood to be a harbinger of doom, quickly sold the statue to the next unsuspecting collector. Yet the goddess's appetite remained unsated, and the new owners soon discovered that death followed wherever she went. Recognizing the statue's historical significance, the Royal Scottish Museum eventually purchased the piece, hoping that institutional ownership might break whatever hold it seemed to maintain over private families. Their optimism proved tragically misplaced. Deaths among staff and researchers continued with disturbing regularity, each incident unexplained, each victim having worked closely with the limestone goddess. The museum's enthusiasm turned to dread as they realized they had not acquired an artifact but inherited a curse. Today, the statue rests in the museum's storage facility, isolated from public view and accessible only to those with the highest clearance. This decision came after a security guard, working alone during a night shift, was found dead the following morning, with no signs of struggle or apparent cause of death. The goddess had claimed another life, and the museum finally acknowledged what others had learned too late. Some things are safer left undisturbed. In the darkness of her storage room, the limestone goddess waits with arms crossed and haunting expression, unchanged, patient as only the ancient dead can be. One can't help but wonder, is her hunger truly satisfied by isolation, or is she simply biding her time for the next soul brave enough to meet her gaze? Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you found this video interesting, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos.